Angel Island looms large in my family's history. My name is Connie Young Yu. My mother, Mary Lee Young, saved documents, letters, and photos. The paper trail, which tells the story of Mrs. Lee Yuk-sui, my grandmother. She was detained on Angel Island for 15 and a half months. Our story begins with a young bride of 18, Jeong Hing Tong. She married my grandfather, Lee Yuk-sui, in China, and he brought her home to San Francisco in 1904. Here they are together on their wedding day. On the day of the Great Quake, April 18, 1906, they were in Chinatown with their month-old baby daughter. My grandfather was a U.S. citizen by birth. This is the certificate he risked his life to save in the aftermath of the 1906 quake. He ran to the ruins of his store and retrieved his birth certificate and important business papers. A soldier thought he was a looter and bayoneted him. Luckily, he was wearing a padded coat and his wound wasn't deep. San Francisco recovers from the great disaster and rebuilds. My grandparents and their little children returned to Chinatown. Chinese merchants were a major part of the city's commerce. The Lee's store was Guangzhangwo, and they had a successful importing and exporting business. Here's a 1909 portrait of my grandfather and his brothers and their families. That's my grandmother holding my mother, her third daughter, on her lap. Lee Yuk-sui became an agent for Levi Strauss and also the Haas brothers. They exported American goods to China. He became a friend of Walter and Charles Haas. Grandpa was highly regarded by the company, judging by this picture of a banquet they gave in his honor in 1919, before he departed for China. And this is a group portrait of him with the Haas brothers. They also lived in Shanghai, where the children went to a Cantonese school. Lee Yuk-sui was a director of the Oriental Trade Company. This is a photograph taken in Shanghai. Even a person of Lee's merchant status was often questioned and detained while traveling on business. This was the exclusion era, when Chinese were regarded with suspicion by authorities. These are the papers documenting how he was detained while traveling and needed the help of the Haas brothers to facilitate his passage. He also requested help from Walter Haas on behalf of his brother, who was detained on Angel Island. On a trip back to China in September of 1922, Lee Yuk-sui succumbed to liver cancer and died on board ship. My grandmother decided to return with her children to America. San Francisco was their real home. Their ship arrived on January 15, 1924. This was the year the harshest exclusion law was enforced, prohibiting aliens ineligible for citizenship from entering. My grandmother had a re-entry permit stating she was a wife of a citizen and a merchant, but the inspector said she was a widow and declared she had lost her status upon her husband's death. Her children, American citizens by birth, were allowed to land. My grandmother, Wang Shi in her documents, was taken in a tugboat to Angel Island for investigation. There, upon examination, the medical officer, Inspector Hickey, declared she had chlornorchiasis, common liver fluke, easily cured, but she was ordered to be deported immediately. My mother and her older sister asked for help from Walter Haas, who had his legal counsel, Charles Fickard, stop the deportation. Telegrams were sent to Washington. Meanwhile, my grandmother waited in the detention barracks. She was known as Wang Shi in her identity papers, and in a later hearing, she was referred to simply as the detained. The first appeal was denied. Another would take months.